And joining us now is Zach Schonefeld. He's a legal affairs reporter at The Hill covering courts and politics, and he was actually inside the Manhattan courtroom this week. Zach, thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate it. So let's get your reaction. The former president refers to his own legal experts saying that there's no case, but he's facing 34 felony charges. You're actually a legal expert yourself as well. Is there a case here? What are you seeing?
Well, that really is the million-dollar question. And we are going to see in the coming months, Trump's legal team is expected to, before this case even goes to trial, to attempt to dismiss the indictment. Now, we don't know exactly what arguments they're going to leverage, and there's a good chance that we don't see some of these motions until the summer. They have until August to try to attempt to dismiss the indictment. So it might be a while until we get into some of the nitty-gritty on the specifics. But generally speaking, the comments that we've heard so far from Trump's legal team casting doubt on these charges, as even before the indictment came down, a lot of these issues have to do with the charge in the indictment connected the falsified business records to a second crime. And that's where a lot of the questions come in. And in terms of how will prosecutors attempt to connect these falsified business records to some other predicate offense. We know from the indictment that the focus is on campaign finance laws, but a number of legal experts have raised various thorny questions over whether, since former President Trump was a federal candidate, how that might affect the case. Can the district attorney even use federal campaign laws, or can he attempt to use a state campaign finance law? So there's a few different options here, so it's not exactly clear exactly what we're going to see, but we do expect, generally speaking, the Trump's legal team is going to cast this as a political persecution and say that these charges, that the case just doesn't hold up.
And there's a lot of talk about a potential gag order leading up to the arraignment. What ended up happening?
Well, there was no gag order that was implemented. No one requested it, but the judge did say at Tuesday's arraignment that even if someone did request a gag order, that he would not have granted it. The concerns that we've heard from Trump's legal team is they say it would effectively be trampling on his First Amendment rights, given that he's a 2024 presidential candidate. The judge seemed to sympathize a little bit with that argument, saying that he recognized that that wasn't ideal and that would stifle the former president's speech. But before leaving the courtroom, the judge did give a warning to Trump's legal team and asked them to tone down the rhetoric, basically, and asked them specifically to refrain from any posts that would be likely to incite violence. Now, since that warning was given in court on Tuesday, we've seen the former president continue to attack the judge and prosecutors since then. And the judge said he could come down the road and issue a gag order. So only time will tell if he changes his mind, given that the statements are continuing. But as of now, there is no gag order.
And here in D.C., what are the developments since then that's happening right now on Capitol Hill?
Well, we've continued to see Republicans on Capitol Hill paint this as a politically motivated persecution. They say that this is an attempt to get former President Trump out of the race and not return to the White House in 2024. So we've seen an intense interest among certain committee chairs and oversight committees on Capitol Hill. They've sent, even since the arraignment on Tuesday, new letters to senior prosecutors on the team that has been prosecuting the Trump case. And they're attempting to get documents, information, subpoenas, and trying to get them to come to Capitol Hill. So this is a continuing legal battle that began before the arraignment, but we've continued to see this back and forth between prosecutors and Republicans on Capitol Hill trying to get documents and information.
And Zach, last question. I saw in your videos that George Santos was there outside of the Manhattan courtroom. Talk to us about that. Why was he there?
He was one of three members of Congress that I saw in the morning leading up to Trump's arraignment. Now, George Santos, we asked him repeatedly why he was there. He was actually only there for a few moments before walking back to his car. And he told me right before jumping into his car that he was there to do nothing. And I asked him if he was coming back, and he said he wouldn't be coming back to the protests or Trump's arraignment because he said that the media was making it unbearable. So it's not exactly clear why he showed up or if he had any specific purpose or message to send. He did say he was there to support the former president, but like I said, he was in the protest for maybe a matter of seconds before getting up and leaving and going back to his car.
All right, Zach Schonefeld from The Hill, thank you so much for being here for your insight. Appreciate it.